Sir, again, as I said, these are things the military is thinking about. I mean, all I can say is that the world of warfare has been changing dramatically since the beginning of the Ukraine conflict. And increasingly, the use of drones, for example, it's striking that neither country actually crossed over into the other's airspace at any stage of these 4 days. Everything is being done from a distance now. Drones, missiles, technologies have moved quite significantly. What was old-fashioned and awful and tragic was the indiscriminate Pakistani artillery shelling, which should never have been done in the manner it was. I mean, but you can understand why. We hit terror bases. There are no terror bases in India to hit. There are no terrorist organizations in India listed in the UN or the State Department anywhere else. So what do you hit? You hit civilians. You hit innocent people. That is the asymmetry of this particular conflict. We have tried not just to be precise and calibrated in our response, but we have tried systematically to signal we are not interested in war with Pakistan. We're not interested in attacking Pakistani civilians, ordinary people. This is about India versus terrorism. And as far as we're concerned, situating the problem where it belongs is if you don't want places in your territory to be hit because they're housing terrorists, why don't you shut down the safe havens? Why don't you arrest these leaders? Why don't you close their bank accounts? Why don't you disband these organizations or call them illegal? If you're not prepared to do any of that, then I'm afraid this is the only way we can deal with it, because we are not going to sit back at our homes and be hit at your convenience. That's not going to happen.
Yes.
Most recently, U.S. Ambassador to Morocco. It's good to see you.
Sorry, I didn't hear you very well. Do repeat that.
Puneet Talwar.
Yeah,
good to see you again.
Good to see you
Most
again.
recently, U.S. Ambassador to Morocco. And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that during the engagement, the military engagement, that China's technology was at the top level was provided to Pakistan. So they had cutting edge technology. You managed to penetrate that. So I want to just press you a little bit more on that. Is the sense in the strategic community and top level politicians like yourself that India stacks up just fine against Chinese technology, or is there some sense of concern or reassessment going on in a serious way about where this leaves India relative to China?
Puneet, I think, frankly, the reassessment took place while the fighting was going on. In other words, when we saw what the Pakistanis were attempting to do, using, as you say, Chinese technology, there's supposed to be something called a kill chain that the Chinese specialize in, where the radar, GPS, planes and missiles are all linked together and they react instantly. All this is stuff I'm reading in public military analyses. It's not something I've got from any classified source. But when we saw that, we simply did things in a different way. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to hit 11 airfields, and we wouldn't have been able to breach the Chinese supplied air defenses. So it's clear that assessments were taking place while the fighting was happening, and we were recalibrating our strategies in order to end as effectively as we were able to end. So that, I think, is the short answer. The longer answer, I'm afraid, only the military can provide. I mean, you and I have been at various ends of the policy spectrum in your country and in mine, but we haven't really been sitting in military headquarters. So I'll take a pass on how much further we can go on that. By the way, on the Chinese technology, I may have slightly misspoken, because my understanding is, for example, the aircraft given is the Chinese J-10, whereas the Chinese themselves have a J-20, which is apparently one or half a generation newer. And who knows if they'll supply that. I mean, the fact is China has immense stakes in Pakistan. The largest single project of the Belt and Road Initiative is the one in Pakistan, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So we have no illusions about the degree of commitment that China may well be feeling towards Pakistan.
Samir.
Thank you, sir. Samir Lawani from CSBA. I wanted to ask a question. Leaving aside motives, the question is about effects. So you said that we had to show them that they had to pay a price. And my question is, what is your sense of whether Pakistan believes they paid a price, whether the military, the politicians, the civilians, the population? And I ask that in light of the fact that the military army chief received a 5th star. There seems to be a lot of triumphalism. So did they actually feel that price? And does that affect their behavior in the future?
I think one of the principal motives for this horrific terror attack, which was signaled, by the way, a few days earlier by a speech by the Pakistani military chief in which he made the astonishingly bigoted assertion that Muslims could not live in a non-Muslim majority country, which is kind of a bizarre thing to say given the number of non-Muslim majority countries in which Muslims can be found, including the fact that we have 200 million Muslims in India who are living in peace with their neighbors. And one of them is a member of my delegation, I might add. He's sitting right here. So I just want to say, Sarfraz Ahmed sitting right there. I just say this simply because one of the objectives was clearly to shore up the Pakistani army in a situation where they were deeply unpopular, with the most popular leader in Pakistan sitting in jail for the last couple of years, and the economy stagnant, and the government that they have been running or manipulating not doing very well in public opinion. And clearly, whatever happened in the conflict that was bound to ensue after the terrorist strike, they were going to declare victory for the army. So there was a lot of chuckling in Delhi when the failed general became a field marshal. But I mean, that's the sort of thing that by promoting himself, as you said, with that extra star, because that was definitely going to be the army's gain from this fight with India. They wanted, once again, to show themselves as the savior of the nation in the face of attacks by a bigger power. The fact is that they provoked those attacks. We were very happy leaving them alone. We had no desire to start this. But when they provoked these attacks by the terrorist strike, we gave them, if you like, a ready-made opportunity to come up with a narrative they'd already pre-decided they wanted. And so that's all right. That's what happened. We have no particular complaints or regrets. If that makes them feel that they can stop fighting, it saves us the bother of continuing this unnecessary fight. Remember, for India, this war is a distraction. For the Pakistani military, it's fundamental to its sense of importance, its sense of success in its own society. You know, some of you here must have read Voltaire on Prussia. In India, the state has an army. In Pakistan, the army has a state. And the army is going to do always what's in its best interest. That's essentially what we saw happening. But I do want to stress that as far as India is concerned, we don't care what they say to their public. We know what's happened. And frankly, the satellite pictures are not Indian pictures. There is absolutely no evidence that the Pakistan has been able to advance in support of its claim to have inflicted magnificent victories and great damage on India and so on. Absolutely no evidence. 2 videos came out on social media. Both turned out to be from other conflicts and other years. Nothing to do with this one. So all I'll say is more power to the Pakistani military than take it anyway. But that's what this is all about in terms of their narrative.